Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer for NC State Wolfpack on SI, Tucker Sennett. Pleased to be with you on this Saturday morning here, ready for a full day of ACC football. NC State obviously already moved to 3-0 with that opening conference win over Wake Forest on Thursday, 34-24 game. CJ Bailey, tremendous performance. Hollywood Smothers, new career high rushing yards. Just a great second half for the Wolfpack and a great recovery after going down 14 nothing early. But as always, as we like to do on these weekends, we'll look at the full conference just to kind of get a better feeling of where NC State stands overall and try to tell you what might happen in some of these games. A big weekend for the conference, a good mix of conference games and out of conference games left over early in the season. But some key matchups early here. Um, Starting with number 12, Clemson looked not great last week against Troy. Obviously had that loss to LSU in the opener. They're going to be at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. That's a huge game. Atlanta has, or sorry, Georgia Tech has looked really good in its first two games. Went to Colorado, won that game. Haynes King obviously already beat up as he always is, but is gonna battle through. And I think Georgia Tech has a serious chance to upset Clemson and maybe take them out of the playoff hunt pretty early in the season here with another loss. If Clemson goes to 1-2, that would be pretty critical for their playoff chances. So certainly a big one there in Atlanta. Then we got UVA trying to bounce back after their loss to the Wolfpack last week in an FCS matchup against William and Mary. They should take care of business there if they play like they did against NC State, even with their offense and Chandler Morris firing on all cylinders. Then you got SMU in an odd road trip to Missouri State. They're coming off that pretty disappointing loss to Baylor in double overtime last week. They'll want to make a statement in this game. Missouri State has sort of gone through the gauntlet here early in the season. Uh, Played USC, lost 73-13, went to Marshall and beat former NC State defensive coordinator Tony Gibson 21-20. So escaped down there, but they could be in some trouble in this one here against the Mustangs, the ACC Mustangs, which still feels weird to say. Another big one, big rivalry, non-conference, backyard brawl is back. We got Pittsburgh at West Virginia. Obviously, a lot of bad blood between these two teams. They're going to be in Morgantown this year. West Virginia coming off a pretty horrible loss to Ohio, a MAC school in last week's game. Pitt looked strong, but hasn't really had much of a challenge in its first two games. They played Duquesne and Central Michigan. We'll see how they handle another power conference opponent, even though it's a power conference opponent that has been somewhat weak to start the season. These two teams hate each other. So always interesting, always some good chippy football in this matchup. Then we got Richmond at UNC, another matchup in Chapel Hill. UNC coming off that ho-hum victory over Charlotte, 20-3, I believe the score was. Um, they looked okay at times, didn't really show much after that really disappointing debut against TCU. So we'll see if they have improved at all. Richmond, obviously not an FBS school, so um, shouldn't be too much of a challenge for them, but you never know with this team. I don't think anybody is confident in any prediction that they make about Chapel Bill this year. Maybe the game of the day. America's team, as they've kind of become over the last 2 weeks, the number 18 South Florida Bulls will travel to face the number 5 Miami Hurricanes in probably the biggest battle of Florida that we'll get this year with the way that the Gators are playing. Maybe FSU and Miami will have a good matchup later on, but um, this is a big game for Miami, big and an even bigger game for South Florida because if the Bulls can somehow pull this out and win three straight games an underdog against ranked opponents, um, that's pretty unprecedented. And they've certainly looked the part in the first two. They're winning ugly, which is such a big thing for these types of teams. That's just kind of how they do it. So if they're able to muck this game up, you never know. They could have a shot, but I just think Miami has too much offensive firepower here, and the Bulls unfortunately turn into a pumpkin. Old Dominion at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has looked, quite honestly, pretty horrible early here in the season. So we will see on this one. If Virginia Tech goes down here, we might be talking about Brent Pry's job being gone sooner rather than later, because that could be an 0-3 start. They're obviously at home here, which should give them an advantage, but things have looked really, really bad for this team early on. Big game in terms of implications for NC State. Duke is at Tulane, a Darien Mensah homecoming game. The Blue Devils are 1-1. Tulane has looked good in a 2-0 start. Obviously, some feelings for Darien Mensah, I'm sure, in this game. I'm sure Tulane would love nothing more than to make him look average after he bailed for that NIL paycheck, but should be an interesting one. And we'll learn a lot about Duke. We'll certainly discuss what we see in this game throughout the week and go from there. But should be very telling about the Blue Devils as they go to New Orleans to face the Green Wave. And then we wrap up the ACC slate with a night game on the farm at Stanford. Actually, I'm sorry, I missed a game. The Stanford game is one of two games on the West Coast. Stanford hosting conference opponent Boston College. Stanford looking for its first conference win, but Boston College will probably take care of business in that one. And then a great ACC Big Ten matchup between two schools that are, maybe going to hover in the middle of their conferences if things go well, but a win in this game could catapult them to maybe a better season than expected. We got Minnesota visiting Berkeley to play the Cal Bears. That'll be on ESPN. That's a Dave Fleming game. Minnesota has looked pretty strong in its first two games, although they haven't really played anybody yet. Cal had that tremendous debut against Oregon State, and then sort of sputtered offensively in the game against Texas Southern last week, but still won pretty easily. There was no doubt. So we'll see how the freshman quarterback for them performs in that game. That's your ACC slate. I'm recording this Friday night, so I'm not going to include Colgate at Syracuse here. I would hope Syracuse takes care of business there. So we'll see what happens, but that's your Saturday slate. And as always, it's great to talk ACC ball with you all. And I hope you join us again for another episode. You can follow my X account for more content about NC State, my account at Senate Tucker, as well as the website's account at Wolfpack on SI on X. Um, Lots of great content coming your way there. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.